Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This heat is becoming tedious, is the polite version. My workload is just so high at the moment. I'm not getting a lot of spare time. And it's just how it has to be. It doesn't happen often in this country, so I suppose we all, in some cases we should be grateful. People on holiday and all stuff like that. But for gardeners and people with allotments and people with greenhouses, the lack of rain is one thing. The heat is another thing. You put the two together and it's causing some real hardships around at the moment. Boy, am I glad I got an RO unit, which is on the go at the moment because I'm also running out of water so much quicker because I'm just using so much more. That's just how it is at the moment. It's cooler today. We got a few days of slightly lower temperatures, but there's still no sign of flipping rain. And they keep saying there's a chance of a shower. Well, a shower won't do any good at all, you know, for gardeners and crops and, you know, people with allotments growing veggies and stuff like that. We need substantial rain now, albeit a bit upsetting to have that miserable weather back, but it's just a need at the moment. Anyway, the one thing I have noticed is that it is shortening the life of blooms. It really is. It's knocking a week off of some of them. You know, things that only last sort of 4 weeks anyway are going down in 3. So the relatively short-lived blooms are even shorter. So it's cutting the life of the blooms off, definitely. Last time I spoke about watering and stuff, I had a problem with the pH of my water, because I do share water, not to be recommended, but given the circumstances, I'm lucky to get away with what I do. I noticed on my it's this lot here that are the main problem. I kept measuring how bad the problem was around the greenhouse, including the mounts and, you know, the other types of pots and things. And the guilty parties are the ones that are in small bark and moss, yeah? And obviously the longer they've been in that media, the more broken down that media is. I haven't got anything with totally broken down media, because that would get repotted. But I have got some things that have been in their pots long enough for it to be a little more acidic than it would be if it was shiny, squeaky new, shall we say. So what I've done is I've changed my watering, I did sort of say. So what I do now is I still use my bowl and I still pour water through the pots and back into the bowl. But what I'm doing now is I'm mixing up a much larger amount. Now at the moment I'm going to water and feed my very low level feeders. So I've mixed up, that was a TDS of 85 and I took it up to 100 with the CalMag. So that's all that's in that. And then all I'll do is take some of that, not much, just some, and put it in there and use it. Now that will do 4 or 5 pots. So the change of the pH in the runoff will be minimal. And then that water will be gone. And if there is a little bit left over, I'll dump it and then go back and get some fresh and start on some more pots. And that manages the problem quite well. And the overhead is that I have to keep replenishing my stocks in that bowl. But it's only just inside the door. You know, it's not exactly a big deal. And it means I'm sharing much, much, much less water that are good. And the runoff from the pots is minimalised because that water is only going to go through a couple of pots and then it'll be gone. And then it'll be fresh for the next little set of pots. So that's what I've changed. It's not a major change, but the effect will be major. So, you know, a little thing with a big difference, one hopes. My other problem I've got out here is the ant problem. And it's nearly gone. What I did was all the debris and stuff around the outside of the grow room, you know, where the sort of sill is, all in under there, it gets cobwebs and leaves and dust and stuff. I swept that all out nice and clean and then sprayed the whole lot round the outside with the ant stop. And that's a liquid that dries into the most minute crystals and sticks to the ants. Yeah, and when they try and wash it off, they die. But what they also do is take it back to the nest. That's the objective. And the number in here now is right down. I mean, this morning I think I've killed half a dozen, and it was more like 30 a day, you know, so that problem's gone away. So those annoying little movements out of the corner of my eye are starting to die down now. I think I'm on top of the ants. As for the other bugs, I'm still dealing with a few scale around the base of some of the cattleyas. As far as I know, my tolumnias are clean because they're the ones that are affected the worst. There's a mealybug here and there. I'm lucky I haven't got any aphids. I did see, I won't say lots of plants, but I did see some noticeable plants at Burnham's in the Orchid Paradise area that were absolutely smothered in aphids. But you can't help it. I mean, to keep things cool, they've got all the roof vents open, wide open, to let that hot air out and fresh air in. And obviously, you know, if air can come in, the bugs can come in with it. So, yeah, they did have a few. But quite honestly, I don't worry so much about aphids. They're the easiest thing in the world to kill. They're so fragile. And the adult mealybugs are easy to kill as well. It's just their residual effect. You know, if you've got some adult mealybugs, the chances are you've got some eggs lurking, and they'll hatch out and become more mealybugs. Ever seen a mealybug out in your garden? Because I flippin' haven't. Where do they come from? I reckon they get coaches from a sort of breeding factory somewhere, and they all get on a coach and say, right, whose greenhouse are we going to have today? And they just arrive, like the fairies bring them or something. Because I've never seen any outdoors, and yet they're in here. Very low numbers, but this is the time of year with this sort of weather when a bug infestation can become just that. Instead of a few lurking, it can become bad. And the worst offenders are the spider mites. Now, I'm lucky I haven't got any of those. Well, not that I know of, let's put it that way. And half the time with spider mites, by the time you know you've got them, the damage is already done. They are so small. It tends to be the damage that gives them away. And by the time you can see the damage, you've got quite a few. Now again, they're not the most difficult thing in the world to kill once you know you've got them. But you know, keep on top of your bugs, be vigilant, keep your eye out, and when you see some, don't put it off till next time, do it. Stop what you're doing and do the bugs, like when you see them. That's what I do, and I can manage them, I can keep on top of them. I don't think this grow room will ever be bug-free. I mean, the time when they're at their least effective, because they don't breed so much, is in the winter when it's cold. But with this heat and, you know, these long days and everything, they're in their ideal world. So the idea is to make their world as difficult as possible for them and just keep on top of the little tykes. It is a mammoth watering session today. Whether I'll find anything interesting as I go round, I don't know. But I just thought, you know, that little change in the way I'm watering is going to have a major difference, because the runoff, certainly through some of these, it's mainly these pots, the ones in bark and moss. It's where the moss is, basically. I'm not sure, the ones in bark on their own don't seem to be a problem. It's where the moss is, and moss does break down. And it may break down a bit faster than you might think, especially when it's wet all the time, you know. I mean, it's effectively dead when you get it, yeah? And then you add water to it, it's just going to break down. It's just the nature of the beast. The alternative is live moss, of course. Unfortunately, live moss doesn't take too kindly to fertilizers. So it's quite... And what you don't need is live moss that dies in your pot. That is not good. I mean, this inert dead moss that you get, you know, sort of really for orchids, or, you know, mainly, it's completely sterile. And it lasts a year or so, depending on how wet your pots stay. It can head on towards 18 months, but I think if you're getting up near 2 years, you're pushing your luck. It is going to be breaking down at that point. It doesn't last forever, so keep your eye on it. My Vanderspike's pushing on nicely now. Notice the weights. I've got one wooden clothes peg with a very, very large opening, and it goes round the stem without actually pinching on it at all. But one isn't enough, so then I have to add a few more to get the weight down, because I mean, yesterday that spike was actually touching the roof. well, that's just going to burn the buds. So I've weighted it down a bit, and obviously as the buds swell, that will get heavier and heavier until eventually it will arch over quite well. The one with the white blooms and the purple lip, that spike's been taken off now. It has got another one coming. Not as many buds on that spike though. But those blooms just went over. They started all turning brown and not looking nice. The orange one's looking good. The second spike's coming on. It's got a few buds missing that I happened to knock off accidentally. There was language, but you know, when you're trying to hurry, that's when the accidents happen. And this one's going to go soon, I can tell. But Miltonia Sunset's opening up nicely. Shelob Tolkien that spike's going now, so that can come off as I get to water it. That leaves one, and then it's a matter of pushing on the new growths as they start. They tend to start just after blooming, and then they push on and then bloom when they're ready. But it's quicker than a year. You know, it's something like 9 or 10 months the next sort of spikes will be looking to open, so you've got a bit of a wait. Peter Comp's opening up its first spike, second spike lurking somewhere in here, but there are two. This is very fragrant, this is, and this has got one more bud to open on this. I've got a feeling these aren't going to last too long in the heat. We shall see, and the zygote's hanging in there quite nicely. But as it's the first spike I've ever had that I've grown myself, I'm not really sure how long the blooms last. Because all the others I've bought in bloom, so you don't know how long they've been open, you know. I mean, they might have been open a week, they could have been open 3 weeks, and they're on their way out, you never know. So we'll at least find out how long that particular zygote lasts. And I must admit, at this point, there's more blooms going than coming. I don't know what it's going to be like on the 8th in August, I'm sure. But yeah, there's the wedding bells isn't going to last too much longer now. The blooms are fading quite quickly. The couple of out-of-season buds on Prima Donna, they're going to go soon. One's going. They all came out roughly together, so they've only got a few days left. Yeah, so there's quite a bit going over. As I say, there are some spikes coming on behind, and there are some things that just ought to bloom, and I just, you know, they're on hold. All my Latorias, for instance, there's not one spike showing at the moment. Well, they're all bar one or two, are blooming size plants. They should bloom. It's just a matter of when, but they should come soon. I've got very little on the blooming front within the Cattleya set. There's that lovely large sheath there. That's a little bit misleading, because if you look at the shadow it looks like there's buds. It's not actually buds yet. This has a strange pattern on it. It grows a big sheath with the leaves, so as the leaves open up the sheath pushes up, but then it grows a second sheath inside. So that isn't actually buds, it's the shadow of the second sheath. The buds will push out from there eventually, but I don't like squeezing around, you know, to see what's going on, because they are so fragile at that point. So I just let them get on with it. When it blooms, it blooms. And apart from that, the Cattleya set are just doing new growths and things. So, well, as is a lot of stuff really. So nothing much to look forward to at the moment. I've got no new spikes on Tolumnias at the moment. And in fact, those are the only Tolumnia blooms in here. And they've got about a day to go and they'll fall off. And then I'll have no Tolumnias at the moment. But they're growing now. I'll show one, because this one's been struggling for, well, since last summer. It was a single fan, that was all that was left after the scale ate it, and it pushed out that tiny little new fan. Well, that tiny little new fan is the one closest to the larger fan. It's now producing another one, so that's two, and then there's another larger one coming out from the centre of the plant, and there is now some white roots growing, so it is going to make it. But that has been, must be around a year just sitting there with one single fan. But at least it's growing now, and the others are all okay. That was the one that was a real struggle to get going again. and I missed my chance. I wanted, the year before, at the RHS show in London, there were several vendors that had lots and lots of Tolumnias in bloom, and they were in tiny little clay pots with nothing in them, which is not a bad way to grow them, and they were like £6, and there were loads of them. And at that time I thought, oh, I've actually got quite a lot of Tolumnias. Little did I know that I was going to lose that many with the scale, otherwise I'd have bought them. So this year when I went to the RHS show, I thought, well, if those Tolumnias are there, I'll stock up. And were there any? Were there hell. So we missed out on those, which is a shame. But this is what I mean about bugs. This was clean last time I looked at it. Well, there's a few. I think they're bugs. I can't think what else they can be. Do you know, that looks like a dust. I'm just touching it and it comes off. That doesn't look like living objects, but if it isn't, what the hell is it? Anyway, I'll deal with that when I get to it. I'll be quite late down the line and might even have to wait till tomorrow. Depends how much steam I've got and how soon it runs out. Anyway, just a quick chat, and I'll get on with stuff and see how I go. But I'm finding now, over this period of time, I'm losing my energy. I haven't got the energy I've normally got. It's just, I get drained. And you've also got the problem with the heat when you're trying to sleep. So you're getting disturbed sleep as well, or I am anyway. And that's with the windows open. And unfortunately, there's a downside. Having the windows open makes it a little bit cooler at night. But because we live near the coast, we get gulls. And they scream and make the most obnoxious noise just after it gets light, which at the moment is about 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning. And it's just so much noise that there's no way I can sleep through it. And occasionally I can get back to sleep if it stops quite quickly. So I'm losing out on sleep, and the day is draining, and that's just how it is. I'm living with it, and I'm sure some people are thinking it's wonderful, but for me it's now becoming tedious. I've sort of had enough of it now. And I'm really looking forward to some lovely continuous rain for the garden, freshen up the air, clean the air, and just lower those temperatures down. But there's no sign of any yet, so still got to live with this for a while yet. I mean, the forecast right through this coming weekend is just more of the same. It's great for Wimbledon. Don't think they've had a shower even. Whereas sometimes Wimbledon is almost rained off and they can't even get through the matches. So yeah, it's good for some, not for others. But at the moment I could just do with a break from it. Anyway, let's get on with the watering. And with my new style watering, it doesn't really take that much longer. It's only a little bit longer, and that little bit is worth doing just to make sure that I don't get that massive drop in pH due to runoff through the pots. I can minimise it by watering just a few pots at a time, and that cuts down on the sharing water as well, so there's an added bonus in there. Don't know why I didn't think of doing that a long time ago. See you next time. Okay, I've only got a few more mounts to do now and I'm done for the day because I'm just exhausted. The heat's getting to me. It's built up over days and days and days, and now I've had enough. And I've had enough with these ants too. Although they have really thinned down. Not completely gone, but pretty thin on the ground now. I don't know whether I should tell you this. First of all, sorry about the politics. I shouldn't do that sort of stuff on an orchid channel. It only winds people up. Doesn't wind me up because I just keep laughing at them. But the matter is serious. I do appreciate that. Anyway, no politics, religion or race. It's orchids and related. Basically, I've been playing around on a site that's, I suppose the description would be called cryptocurrencies, and I think I've finally got the hang of it. I mean, to sort of join in, you have to put some money in. You know, you have to sort of create an account and put some money in so that you can invest in things like currencies and commodities and stocks and, well, anything that people invest in, really. And I thought I'd have a play. And so I put the minimum you can put in is £300, which I had that in the bank, just sitting there doing nothing, gaining no interest. So I thought, we'll have a play. So I put some money in. And although I've made a couple of mistakes, I think I'm getting the hang of the site now. It's clever, but it's also very, very easy to, I could imagine, to lose an awful lot of money if you don't know what you're doing. And I didn't know what I'm doing, but I'm a fast learner, especially where actual money is concerned. I played around with Crude and Brent today, and basically they were on a high. So the way the site works is you predict the direction that things are going to move in. Well, looking back over quite a long period of time, they really were on a high. Now, they still could have gone higher, but you have to bear in mind the dollar's not doing as well as it has been, and everything is basically priced against the dollar. You know, I mean, for instance, if a barrel of oil costs $100 and the value of the dollar drops, you need more dollars to buy that barrel, if you see what I mean. So it's not just the commodities, it's what they're priced against. It can get quite complicated, but I'm really enjoying playing with it at the moment. And this morning I looked at Crude and Brent, both oil related stuff, you know, and they looked like they were on a high, and I thought, I got a feeling that's going to drop during the day, especially as the dollar's not doing too well. So I set up a couple of lines. You invest in which direction you think it's going to go. If you think the price is going to go up, you sort of buy, I suppose you could call them shares, but you buy whatever they are. I still don't really know how it works. And if you think the price is going to drop, you set up a line to sell. And basically I set up 2 lines to sell, and the prices promptly went up. And I could see my negative profit getting bigger and bigger, and I was thinking to myself, well, swear word, insert your own swear word at this point. But then I put that money in there to play with, like you would in a game of cards. You go into a room, you know, full of smoke and beer, and you play cards, and you take in with you an amount of money, and if you come home without any of it, you've still probably had a good time. And if you win some, great. But you go there with the sort of money you can afford to lose and have a good time while you're doing it. So that's the way I looked at the money. So I watched these lines for a while. I thought, I think I've done that wrong. And then this afternoon I had another look. price for both of them was absolutely plummeting. And quite honestly, I've made nearly £200 on those 2 lines today for doing nothing. And you don't sort of risk the money in your account unless you run out of money, if you see what I mean. So if your negative profit gets to the point where it equals your balance, it'll write your money off, which doesn't sound very nice at all, and I don't want to get anywhere near that. But as long as the price is going up and down, your line just sits there and your balance hasn't changed. This is the funny thing. This is the bit I don't understand. I mean, I had just over £300 in that account this morning, and those lines went up, they went down, they chopped and changed. And the money in my account hadn't changed. What had changed is my equity, you know, which is the amount available to do something else with. That chopped and changed. Excuse me, I'm just grabbing these ants while I see them. But anyway, so during today, I made more money than I would have done if I'd been out at work today, for doing absolutely nothing. Now tomorrow I may lose it all, but I treat it like I would a game of cards. It's just a bit of fun. And at the moment, it seems to be doing okay. So another little income, or loss. But the most I can lose is the money I put in there, which, you know, I sort of put in there to have some fun with. just like you would a game of cards. Except for it's not matchsticks, it's actually real money. Anyway, so I thought I'd tell you about that. It is a bit of fun. If I start getting uptight about it, I'll stop doing it. It is as simple as that. I'll only carry on playing while I'm having fun playing. If it starts getting too serious, I mean, it is serious from the... I've got a sales guy, keeps phoning me up and telling me to invest thousands and thousands of pounds, and I'll end up with a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, or I could end up with no money at all. Yeah, I keep telling him that, and now I've blocked his phone because he's getting on my wick. But it's sales, you know. If it's your job to get people to put more money in there and therefore invest more money, bearing in mind they take a cut, yeah, that's how they make their money. So he has a job to do, but he's not doing it with me. I've learnt by experimentation and having some fun, and I am having fun. It's going okay. I'm going to end up having a right downer soon. I can see it coming, but we'll see how we go. With the amount of money I've got in that account, what you have to do is the maths. I put £300 in there, and I've now got about £550, and I've done that in a couple of months. Scale it up. Instead of £300, what if that had been £30,000? Not that I've got anything like that amount of money, but just think, just scale that up. There's some big money to be made if you've got the big money to start with. They say money makes money. You know, I can imagine people with millions of pounds to spare just sitting there not doing anything could get on one of these sites and like double their money. And that's ridiculous that you can do that sort of thing. Worries me. But as they say, money makes money, and I haven't got much of it, and I'm hanging on to most of it. Anyway, just larking around, and sorry about the politics. It just struck me as so amusing yesterday. It was like headless chickens running around, and if you remember when you were at school, and you know, like you said, right, we're gonna have a game of football. You're the captain of one side, you're the captain of the other side. Now pick your team. Yeah. I always used to be last. It's only the fact that I could run that I even got chosen at all, I think, because I can't play football. I can play rugby reasonably well as long as nobody comes near me. I'm not a big bulky person, but I can normally outrun anybody who gets near me, or I could then. Doubt if I could now. So I used to get picked quite early on for rugby, and they used to say, Roger, you get out on the side somewhere, out on the wing, and if somebody gives the ball, you do your running thing, and if anybody comes near you, throw the ball away, because you've got an athletics match next week and we don't want you injured. So that was my sort of activity. All good fun. Anyway, I will see you next time. I've nearly finished watering, and I've found nothing new to film, quite honestly. It's just at that stage at the moment. There's blooms to come down the line, but not today. There's no work to do in the kitchen at the moment. Well, there are a few things to do in the kitchen, but at the moment I'm battling against keeping things hydrated and watered, and you know, just looking after the plants and making sure they're living, to worry about repotting and things like that. I will get back to some kitchen jobs in the not too distant future, but I'm not really keen on disturbing plants in this heat. Doesn't matter how careful you are, there is an element of setback, even though it could be very, very minor. In this heat it would be exaggerated. So what could have been just a slight setback could end up being quite a major big deal, with a change of media, disturbing the roots, putting it into new media, bearing in mind I use that Orchid bark, and when it's new it does not wet very easily. Well, yeah, it wets, but it dries ultra fast. So if I repotted something in pure bark at the moment, I'd be looking at watering it every single day for some time because of the heat. So No kitchen jobs at the moment. Just wait for this weather to break and everything to settle down again. And if I don't get out and sort my RO unit out, I'm going to flood the garden because the Vanderbucket's nearly full. So I'll see you next time. And again, sorry about the politics. Shouldn't be doing politics on an orchid channel. See you again.